Welcome, everyone, to today's webinar. We've got a very special pre-holiday treat for you. We're going to be talking a little bit about some festive holiday recipes that you can make easily at home, and these will be infused treats for you and your guests. Again, I'm Becky DeCoyster. I'm the Director of Outreach and Education here at the Wellness Connection of Maine. And we are joined today by a very special guest. Brooke Hebert is with us. Brooke is our Kitchen Operations Manager, and I might add pastry chef extraordinaire. Brooke, good morning.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. Before we dive in, I do want to give a special shout out to our neighbors here in Gardner. We are broadcasting today from Bailey's Auto Store, which is right next door to us here in Gardner, and we're doing that because at the Gardner dispensary we're having a little bit of a technological burp, and so the folks here at Bailey's were kind enough to invite us in, make room for us, and share their space and their wireless connection. So the next time you're in Gardner and you have automotive needs, stop by Bailey's Auto, right next door to us. So, back to you, Brooke. You have joined us in this past year, and I have to say, you have really helped WCM take our edible products to a new level, I think. And I would be very interested to hear a little bit about your background. How did you get into cooking? Where did you, make your chops, and what brought you to WCM?
I started cooking when I was 5 years old. I learned how to make a blueberry pie next to my grandmother's hip, and we've just never looked back. I mean, my grandmother, my mother, my sisters, we've just been a cooking family. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I understand that you were a pastry chef in a former incarnation. Talk to me about that.
I spent the last 20 years of my professional career as a pastry chef. Worked at several different fine dining establishments. Worked at Rough Creek Lodge in Dallas, Texas, down in Glen Rose, Texas, actually. And it's a world-renowned travel resort.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, I worked at the Common Man family of restaurants in New Hampshire.
So you have roots in Maine as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we are, again, fortunate to have you and very happy to have you with us today. I pulled together a few building block recipes, one that I think is great for gifting, another that is, I think, a building block for almost any other infused recipe, and then we're going to go through a pie crust, and the recipe that that we'll be talking about, I think, is good for both savories and sweets.
Absolutely.
We'll talk a little bit more about that, and then we have a really fun dessert that also makes for a nice gift if you're in the giving mood, although it's so good that you might not want to give it away. So let's start with me getting my hold on. Let's dive right in here. So, as I mentioned, this is a building block for cooking, and it can make a very nice gift to folks. And infused olive oil. I know we do butter a lot, right?
Yes.
Is it very similar to do the two?
Yes, the process is pretty much the same.
Okay. So I know that one difference might be, talk to me a little bit about the difference in olive oils. If you're cooking with it, if you're infusing it, does price really make a difference?
Well, an olive oil, typically you can get many different qualities of olive oil. You can get a cold pressed olive oil, which means the extra virgin is the first pressing of the olive oil. It's better for you. If you're a vegan, that would matter. You can usually substitute olive oil without too much flavor distinction in any recipe that calls for a fat or an oil. It will change the makeup of your recipe, but generally speaking, you could replace the two. Butter has a much lower smoke point, so and then because it's an infused butter, you would also possibly lose some of your THC as well.
Oh.
So
temperature matters.
Temperature matters. You want to try to keep your temperature as low as possible generally when cooking. If you're going to put oil in a pan, you don't want it to get generally above 240 degrees.
You see
now, if you're baking, obviously you have to have your oven temp at 350, maybe 325 to bake your baked goods, but generally speaking, THC evaporates out at about 240 degrees. So you will lose some potency, but not a terrible amount.
Okay.
As long as it's not in there for too long.
Gotcha. All right. This is something that a friend actually gifted to me one Christmas. I'm not going to say how many years ago, and I just thought it was the neatest thing. and so it seemed very simple when she explained how she did it. Just 6 cups of olive oil, and then a half to an ounce of dried and cured flowers, ground up. Now, if we're using trim
or the baker's mix that we sell,
the baker's mix, you might want to double that
correct,
to get a little bit more potency in there. Saucepan or double boiler, which do you prefer?
Personally, we use a steam kettle, which is essentially a double boiler, which means that you get a slow, even temperature, and the temperature never rises above 190 to 200 degrees.
Okay.
I mean, generally, like I said, it'll start to evaporate out at 240, but because it'll break down and degrade, you probably don't want it above 190, 200 degrees to be safe.
Awesome.
Double boiler then.
Double boiler. Gotcha. Okay. You'll want to have the spoon, the strainer, the cheesecloth, the glass bowl. A funnel can be very helpful. And then off to the side, a decorative glass bottle with a cork stopper and some raffia or ribbon to tie around the neck of the bottle. And basically, this seems like a pretty simple recipe. We're going to put the olive oil and the dried cannabis in your, let's say, double boiler.
Yeah, I mean, and in your photo, I noticed that it's like an electric. You definitely want a double boiler if you're using an electric stove. If you have a gas stove, you can set the temperature to a much lower temperature than an electric element would get to. And generally speaking, you want to make sure that you continuously check the temperature to be sure that it doesn't, again, get above, I would say, max 200, 210.
So another handy thing to have around would be like a candy thermometer? Or,
yep.
Okay, great.
That would be perfect.
Okay. So electric burners not so good.
If you have a double boiler, if you have an electric burner, I would use a double boiler for certain. I wouldn't try it. If you have a gas stove, you could attempt to do it without a double boiler on low heat. But again, you want to make sure that your temperature never rises above 200.
Gotcha. Because we'll be burning off we'll be changing the flavor and burning off the THC. Got it. Okay. Cooking over low heat for 2 hours. Is that enough?
Yeah, we typically do it for 2 hours in the kitchen. We've tried several different ways of making it more potent. We've doubled the medical mix, cooked it for 8 hours and left it overnight at heat, and it just doesn't make a difference. The oil can only hold so much they're on, so I guess THC you won't eke out any more THC. You'll just
by
start
adding 2 more hours.
No.
I'm not going to stay on the phone. I can't find my headphones for my cell phone. I'm going to leave it open. So.
Okay, so we're going to pull it off that low heat. We've been using our candy thermometer after 2 hours. We're going to strain it through cheesecloth into a bowl, right? So you lay out a colander or a strainer, lay some cheesecloth over it.
For those of you who are in a kitchen and know what this thing is, it's called a bain-marie. And typically it's like a large metal colander, and inside it you fit a strainer with large holes, like a steel strainer. Typically, that's how we press off our butter. But for folks at home, generally, a good quality strainer over a glass bowl would work just as well.
Gotcha. Okay. And then we're going to take that, pour it through the cheesecloth and then allow it to cool. And then are we going to squeeze and press?
You can squeeze and press a little bit, but again, you may end up with more chlorophyll than is desired. So don't think you're going to squeeze out a bunch more THC, because again, the THC bonds to fat, and so as it's warming up, you're allowing that to take place. It's squeezing the medical mix or the plant matter is not going to give you more THC. It's going to give you more chlorophyll. In our kitchen, we have a tendency not to squeeze it very much because I don't want too much chlorophyll. And you'll still end up with a green color. It's going to impart some chlorophyll, but I would say, generally speaking, probably not.
Okay. So maybe press rather than
slightly
squeeze.
rather than.
Don't wring it out.
Yeah, don't wring it. We're not doing laundry here.
Okay. I love it. All right, so once it's cooled down, we're going to use a funnel and stick that into our decorative glass bottle, and we're going to pour that oil in, and then cork it up. And you're recommending that we store this in the fridge.
Absolutely.
Now, is that the case because we're making it at home, or when I go to the kitchen store or the grocery store and buy an infused oil, should those also be refrigerated?
Well, so the Department of Agriculture has stated that any plant matter could possibly contain or impart any.
Does that work for you? Enough.
Bacteria.
Is it the moisture
it's
in
the plant and the moisture that could be still contained in the plant. So if you wanted to make like rosemary oil, you would never, ever want to use fresh herb. You want the herb to be dried. You want the oil to be a certain heat, above 190, which is obviously what we've done. But even still, there could be some bacteria or
precursors.
Yeah, you don't want to make yourself sick.
Right.
So just as a safety measure, precaution, I would keep it stored in the fridge.
Got it. All right. I have a bottle of infused oil at home that I need to go home and put in my fridge then. And then removing it from the refrigerator 20 minutes before use, that allows it to come up to room temperature, and that releases flavor, aroma.
You know, I mean, I think that's probably more just a matter of having it room temp, so you're not putting cold oil in a hot pan.
Got it.
Because obviously you're going to have it,
Okay, gotcha.
So, but I mean, if you're making a pie crust like we have a recipe for today, you're going to want it cold. Right. So I wouldn't leave it at room temperature in that case. Okay. It's personal preference and what you're certainly making out of it.
Okay. Awesome. Actually, before we move on to that, you remember in the ingredients list, there's the raffia or the ribbon. Once you have poured that in, stopped it up with the cork, you can tie a little bow around it. You can put your Christmas.
But make sure
card.
you label it, because we don't want someone mistakenly using it.
Yes, yes. So we want to make sure that this says infused and that there is no mistake that that's what it is.
At that point, yeah.
Exactly. Awesome. Here's a question for you. When the friend that gifted me that did present it to me, she had taken she did I want to say it was thyme, cannabis and thyme, and she took a piece of the actual dried herbs and floated it in the bottle that she presented to me.
Well, I mean, you could do that, but even still, it needs to be used within so many days. I mean, there's a process that you need to go through in order to make a safe infused oil with an herb, and certainly it's nice to be able to do something like that. But again, you're opening up the possibility of botulism. Wow. Frankly.
Okay.
I mean, it's
and we don't want to give that for Christmas.
No.
So your recommendation is
do not put anything in your unless you're educated about the process for infusing oil with other herbs, which is that you need to start with a dry oil, you need to start with oil at a certain temperature, you need to cook it in a certain temperature, the bottle you're putting it into needs to be sterile, and even still, I would keep it in the fridge. I mean, I buy infused oils from Hannaford. I know that they've gone through a process review through the Department of Agriculture, but I still am going to store that in the fridge because I want to be safe.
Right, exactly, and we do. So we're recommending no decorative herbs inside. Yep. So maybe you could do your little bow or ribbon around the neck of the bottle.
I mean, if you're really bent on flavoring the oil, there are all kinds of oils that you could add to it. There's thyme oil, there's rosemary oil, there's lavender oil. You could certainly add flavorings.
But you don't need the plant matter in there.
You don't need the plant matter in there. Yeah.
Why not? That makes a lot of sense. Awesome. Well, let's move on to. So this, I was envisioning this as a gift, but you can also do this for yourself. And then any recipe that calls for oil. You can use
pesto, hummus. I mean, the sky's the limit. You're making your own oil.
And if the potency is too much, or you want to cut it back a little bit, you just
dilute it with oil.
Half and half. There we go. Perfect. Infused butter. This is a building block for much of what we do of just in general infused cannabis cooking. Correct?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much the primary ingredient in 90% of our edibles.
Well, and again, it's because the fats they
bond
up
well with the THC.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, they pull it right out of the plant matter.
Right. This is a recipe that calls for a crock pot. I know not everybody has one.
Double boiler would work again.
Same thing. Okay. Yeah. All right. 1 ounce of baker's mix to a pound of butter.
Uh-huh.
Can you double that? Can you halve
You
that?
could double it if you want it to be more potent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at WCM we use 2 ounces to 1 pound, but
Mm-hmm.
that's because we're sure of what we're going
Mm-hmm.
to be using it for, and we need it to be more potent based on that.
Right, gotcha. And again, we need the cheesecloth, the colander or strainer, and the large glass bowl. This was the crock pot I had growing up.
I recognize
when
one.
I found that picture, I was so happy.
I had to use that one.
Right. And this is pretty easy. I mean, you put the butter and the baker's mix in there and set it to low. And
yep.
Can you burn this?
Yeah.
Like,
it's possible. Recently, I had a crock pot where the element went and it burned the right bottom side of my beef stew, and the top left was completely cold and uncooked.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so you want to make sure that the crock pot, although it is vintage, works correctly.
Right.
You want to consistently take your temperature. Certainly, it's easier to put it in a crock pot and walk away from it, but it's also easier to forget it.
Right.
I don't think you'll hurt your butter, but again, if you don't want a whole lot of chlorophyll, you're probably better off to babysit it in a double boiler. But
gotcha.
Again, if the crock pot's easier and you know that you can trust it and the temperatures, I mean, they have a bunch that you can actually put a thermometer in. You can purchase these, I think even at Walmart. It has a thermometer that goes into the top of the lid, and you can set it to an exact temperature. So you can walk away from it, and once it hits that temperature, it's going to back off and cool down and never go above that temperature.
Oh,
they're not very expensive either.
That's really good.
$40, $50.
Okay. You saying that puts me in mind of I do know I've heard of these magic butter machines.
Yeah, I've never used one, frankly.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering if
I don't think it's a necessary piece of equipment.
Right.
I loathe a piece of equipment I can only use for one particular use.
Okay.
And as a chef, I have a kitchen with items that they better be multiple use or they have no place in my kitchen.
So these are tools.
Yeah.
And you want to be able
and
to
I want to be able to use them for more than one purpose,
Yeah.
you know? I mean, why have a butter maker if you can make it in the crock pot you already use for other things?
Right. So you don't have a rice steamer at home? Okay,
I
gotcha.
do not.
Insight.
I do, however, have a pressure cooker which can cook rice very quickly, as well as can things.
Multitasking.
That's right.
All right, so we've got our crock pot. It's set to low. We're going to stir it every 20 minutes or so because we're mixing the active compounds around.
Yeah.
How green should your infused butter be?
It certainly depends upon the ingredients that you're using.
Yep.
I mean, if you used all keef, which you can do.
Okay, and just if anybody doesn't know, keef is the trichomes, the active compounds live in these resin glands that cover the flowers and make it sticky. And when those resin glands fall off by themselves, we call them keef. So it's like a little powder, and it's just active compounds. There's nothing but cannabinoids in there.
And it is extremely potent, typically.
Right. Okay.
If you were to purchase that here at Wellness Connection and use that, you would have a very light, non-green butter.
Okay.
So if you wanted to make something that required a more delicate flavor and something that was not green, you would use keef.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So my butter gets green because there's chlorophyll in it. That's
because
really
it's plant matter.
So a darker green butter is not necessarily a more potent or better butter?
Nope, it is not. It means it has a lot of chlorophyll.
Wow. Okay.
Which can upset your digestive system. I mean, some people just can't tolerate it.
Okay. It's the same chlorophyll that's in grass or tree leaves, right?
Yeah.
Okay. There's reasons we don't eat those.
That's right.
So our butter is getting a greenish hue. It's been 2 hours. And the medicine itself is getting brittle because there's no more of those resin glands left on those leaves. And so then we're going to do, again, the straining, and this is a pretty good visual of what that looks like. I will share with you from experience that we want to do this slowly.
Yeah.
And there is a good reason why we recommend a glass bowl, because I have made the mistake of doing this into a Tupperware.
And it melted.
Yeah. It melted all over the counter. Thank goodness nobody, we weren't burned or anything, but it was a mess. And
frankly, we let ours cool.
Yeah.
Slightly.
Okay.
I mean, it is a large steam kettle.
Right.
But we let it cool.
Okay.
And
that's not going to hurt anything. Just okay.
No. I mean, it's not continuing to cook.
Right.
But We let it cool down to probably 150 degrees instead of 200 because
Right.
Even though we use heat gloves, it's very hot.
Right. And that can be unwieldy. I mean,
Yeah.
you'll have a mass of sort of mushy material there. So, again, we strain it through the cheesecloth, and as you have pointed out, we don't want to wring or twist or squeeze.
We're not doing laundry.
We want to pack. Okay. Discard the plant matter. Can I throw that in my compost?
You have to be sure that you're you're disposing of the plant matter in a responsible and ethical way.
Okay, and talk to me about that. What does that look like?
Well, I mean, per the department,
the
main department of
agriculture, or
the DEA.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those things that should be disposed of, ethically. And I mean, if there's any possibility that an animal is going to get into it, marijuana is toxic to dogs and cats. They can die from ingesting it. So I personally would probably be very careful about making it inedible. In the kitchen, we soap it, put Dawn dish detergent on it, mix it up so that it is actually a deterrent, and no animal is going to want to eat that.
Right.
And then,
Okay.
So I certainly you probably could put it in your compost, but I don't recommend that because it means that you could be exposing a slew of neighbors' cats and dogs if they get into the compost, and it could be dangerous.
I'm not sure what role the fatty parts play in composting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, typically you don't put fats or meats or dairy into your compost. You can put eggshells.
Right. Okay, so we want to pour soap on this and put it out with the trash in a way that kids and pets can't get into it.
Completely safe. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you. We're going to put that mixture in the glass bowl in the fridge for a couple hours to let that butter reharden. Yeah. And then here's another option for a great holiday gift. If you have a nice, sterile, clean glass jar, right, we can remelt that and then pour it into that, and then that becomes...
Just like your little canning ball jars. You want to make sure you prepare them the same way you would if you were going to put canned goods in them, like you said, sterile, clean. And you could pour your butter off into those and then gift it.
Okay, so if I get, let's say, a jam jar, one of those cute little jam jars, and I finish the jam and I soak the label off, and I want to use that to put, some butter in and make that a gift. You
re-sterilize the jar.
And how do we do that?
You need to bring the temperature, gosh, I even forget what that is. I think it's 100. You want to bring it to boiling, and you want to have the jar and the lid completely immersed in boiling water for at least a minute.
Okay. Wow.
I mean, I think there's guidelines on the Department of Agriculture or the Cooperative Extension on how exactly what temperature and how long you need to leave your jars at in order to make them sterile. But
but it's something that you don't need fancy equipment for.
No, and you can reuse jars as long as you follow the process to make them clean and sterile again.
Right.
I have Amish friends up in Unity who always reuse their ball jars, and even the lids, which they recommend that you don't, because on the lip of the lid is a porous substance, the rubber, and sometimes that can become compromised and can cause botulism, obviously. So personally speaking, I would get brand new lids based on the recommendation of the Department of Ag, but I know people who don't. They just sterilize them and make sure that they have a good seal.
Right. Okay, that's fascinating. Is there a name for that little scooper that's shown there?
It just looks like a fancy teaspoon to me, actually.
It does, an elongated teaspoon.
And typically those are used to just grab spices out of a narrow mouth jar.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, so we have figured out how to make an infused oil and an infused butter, and then the next step is to make this beautiful, beautiful pie crust that works for savory and sweet pies. This recipe makes 2 9-inch pie crusts, so if you only want to do like is it a tortilla?
Tortilla,
then you only need 1, right? Those don't have a top.
Oh, no, I make mine with
You make
top.
your tortilla? Okay,
yeah, I like
awesome.
two pie crusts on my tortilla.
All right. So we're going to look for some flour, and you recommend King Arthur?
Yeah, we only use King Arthur flour at WCM.
A teaspoon of salt. You want vegetable shortening or coconut oil, and vegetable shortening it's not lard, but I mean it's like Crisco, right?
No, it's not very healthy though. Your body has a hard time process it like a plastic. So
if
you could get your hands on coconut oil, It's very cheap at Sam's Club or Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
Not that you probably want me.
It's not an
Shop in
expensive,
there, It can be very expensive depending on where you get it from. If you go to Hannaford and buy it, you can get probably a 1-pound jar for $12. It's exorbitant there.
I see. Okay.
But if you shop around, you can get it very cheap, and you can get it online pretty cheap as well.
Okay. And coconut oil is healthier than
so much
veggie shortening.
Yeah.
And you can also use it to form the base of like topicals, correct?
Yeah.
So maybe that'll be another webinar for the future.
Yeah.
We want our unsalted butter. In this one, you could use a full half a cup of infused butter. If you wanted to, I cut this one in half, so we want a 1/4 cup of unsalted and 1/4 cup of infused.
Yep.
And just a little bit, a 1/4 cup or so, half cup of very cold water, ice water. Why is it so important that all of these, the oil and the butter, be so cold?
Well, when you're making a pastry, the idea is that you want it to be flaky and have a little bit of noise in the background. You want it to be able to have lift and delicacy. So you're starting with a cold fat, and it creates a pocket.
Oh.
When the pastry goes into the oven, that little pocket of fat actually it melts out and it leaves a hole. So you're creating, with the layers of fat, you're creating layers of holes, which in turn create nice texture in your pie dough. So it's okay to have chunks of butter left. A lot of people make pie crust, and even though I learned how to bake initially from my mom and my grandmother, my mom still makes a rock hard pie crust because this is one technique she never learned. You don't want to incorporate all your butter completely into your flour. You want it to have pebble-sized bits of fat and butter in it, so that when you add your water, you still see large chunks of fat, and that will give you a flaky pie crust.
Nice.
We want them small though, like a pea size.
Right.
Not like a teaspoon.
Well, let's one more piece of this slide. In terms of what you'll need, you will need a large bowl, a pastry cutter, which is what that bottom picture is.
Yep.
But you can do that with 2 forks
or
as
2
well.
knives. I did it with 2 knives as a kid.
Okay. Spatula or wooden spoon. You want a rolling pin, a 9-inch pie dish, and we like glass because it heats more evenly. A little plastic wrap and maybe some aluminum foil. And so the first thing we're going to do is dice up the butter, right?
Yep.
So we're not going to throw like a whole stick of butter in at once. We're going to dice it up, and then we're going to put it back in the fridge or even the freezer, right, to make it very cold.
Get it chilled again.
Okay. While that's rehardening, we're going to grease the pie dish and set that aside so it's ready for us. Combine the flour and the salt, and then cut in the infused butter. And I think we can see in these pictures what Brooke was referring to, sort of with the sizing. So on the left here, this is beginning the cutting in process.
Yeah.
And on the right, that's what it should look like at the end of the process, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
You're still going to have a little bit of dry matter left when you have made a cohesive dough.
Okay.
It's okay that it's there. It will stick together, though. And if it doesn't, that's why you're using a slight bit of ice cold water, and it's to the look. I mean, you can see in the picture that it's just barely come together.
Right.
And you want it that way.
Okay. And then we're going to take that out, put it on a floured surface, and then roll it into a ball, but not mash it together.
Right. And if this recipe makes 2 9-inch crusts, you're generally going to separate it into 2 equal or even mounds. And then before you even do that, you want to sort of pat it into a round little disc, wrap it up, and chill it again.
Oh, okay. So cold is really important.
You want to keep the fat, the
cold.
little pebbles of fat, from melting. You want to keep them cold.
Oh, wow. So at any time, the dough you're working with, it starts to warm
put
up.
It back in the fridge.
Put it in the fridge.
Yep,
go
chill it. Go do something. Go do a little laundry.
Fold some laundry. Yep. Fantastic. All right.
Personally speaking,
yeah,
you could also keep a bowl inside a bowl of ice on the counter, just chilling, and you could drop a piece of the other dough in there while you're working on it. So I mean, if you feel like it's getting if it's getting too warm and difficult to work with,
right. So when it gets difficult to work with. Will it get sticky? Is
yeah,
that what we're,
it's
okay.
going to get very sticky. So the
Okay.
colder it is, the less sticky it's going to be.
Got it.
And again, you want just enough flour to keep it from sticking, but not so much you can end up with that terrible floury
Taste.
mouthfeel. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So we've got one of our dough balls, right? The other one is going to become the top crust. This will be the bottom crust. You want your hands floured, and we're going to roll that out, to 9-inch pie pan size,
Yep.
right? Start from the middle.
Yep. And something that's really helpful, if you have a silpat, or as you can see in the picture, there's like a baker's sheet they're rolling on.
Mm-hmm.
King Arthur Flour actually has several of these, and it will even give you the diameter that you're to roll it to in order to fit into a certain size pie pan.
Oh, so it's on the roller.
Yeah,
very handy.
it's actually on the and they have rolling pins with little depth gauges,
wow.
so
Yep.
you don't roll it too thin. So
I want to go to a
it's
kitchen store with
pretty
you.
ingenious.
I want to go shopping with you now.
Anytime.
All right. So once we've got the nice round, and we're going to use our fingers to kind of mash in the split edges, right?
Yep.
And then we're going to lift that, put it into the
So the
greased pie
easiest
pan?
way to do it,
Yeah, what's the trick?
you roll it over the rolling pin gently.
Really?
Yes.
And use that to
And then
lift it?
So if you can imagine, if you're
Mhm.
looking at this picture, you're going
Mhm.
to put your rolling pin at the north end of that round mound of dough,
Uh-huh.
and you're going to use your thumbs and gently roll it onto the rolling pin and continue rolling it onto itself.
Wow.
Then you're going to lift the rolling pin up.
Uh-huh.
You're going to put it right over your pie pan.
And
Doesn't
unroll.
need any previous preparation.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're going to unroll your
Wow.
rolling pin.
Very
Now, once it's in your pan, you're going
Mhm.
to press the dough all the way around the pan.
Right.
And something very critical that most people don't know is
good. Mm-hmm.
you're going to butter your crust.
Really?
Yes.
Do tell.
This prevents any liquid from seeping through the pie dough and causing it to be mushy. Have you ever had a mushy pie?
I think we've all had mushy
Yes,
pie
we have.
crust, yes.
So to prevent this, you're going to take a little bit of soft butter and you're going to smear it around the bottom of the pie shell.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some people
Good
also
trick.
dock it with a fork.
Yes.
You can do that. It's not necessary. If your pie is filled, it's not going to lift.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, have you ever baked
I've
a
seen that.
shell
I've
and they
seen that
use like
for-
pie beans or
yeah.
pie weights to bake the shell?
Right.
They're not going to dock that every single time. It
Right.
certainly does help to keep it from rising too much or bubbling. But if you filled the pie crust, it's not
That's
going to
hold
bubble.
it down.
Yeah.
The only time I remember my mom ever docking, or docking is poking the crust with the tines of the fork, was when she pre-baked the crust and didn't intend to fill it until later, the next day or something.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Fantastic. So once we've got that placed in the pie pan and we've lightly buttered it so that it's going to not get mushy, we're ready to fill that pie, right?
Yep.
And then if we want a top crust, we use the second dough ball. Now, what if we don't? How long? How can I throw it in the freezer?
You could throw it in the freezer.
Mm-hmm. Wrap it up tight.
Yep.
Okay.
And I mean, personally speaking, if I'm going to save pie dough, I save it in the previous. I don't roll it out.
You don't roll it.
No, I'll save the chunk of dough.
Okay.
And then I'll put it in the fridge overnight, let it come down to refrigerator temperature, and then the next day roll it out. I don't usually freeze rolled pie doughs because it's just
the storage.
Yeah,
problem, I would
they can
imagine.
break. They
Right.
get brittle, they'll break.
Right.
So.
Okay.
And now if you're going to put a top crust on there,
Yes.
you're going to want to use either milk or water to seal the doughs together.
Oh,
Yeah.
talk to me about that.
Well, if, for instance, I'm making an apple pie,
Mm-hmm.
I'll have filled it,
Right.
and then the next process would be I'd brush the edges of the pie dough with milk,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would roll out my top crust, and I'm going to put it on my rolling pin the same exact way,
Okay.
and then I'm going to unroll it onto the pie,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm going to pinch
Right.
everything together, and then I'm going to roll it
Toward the.
under the lip of the previous dough,
Okay. Okay.
and then I'm going to press
Mm-hmm.
and then pinch with my fingers.
Okay. And the milk helps that
The
stay
milk
together.
helps them seal.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And then if you are baking an apple pie,
Mm-hmm.
you see that one has a nice little blistery crust. It looks
Mhm.
really pretty. If you want to make it look even more pretty, you can brush the entire top of the pie shell with milk and sprinkle it with sugar.
Ooh.
And then also I tent it with aluminum on the edges to keep it from browning too quickly.
Yeah, and so we just what we do at home is cover the whole pie and then cut a circle out of the center.
Yeah.
You want about an inch and a half?
Yeah, inch and a half is good. Yeah.
So, okay. All right.
Easy way to do that is take your aluminum foil, make sure it's the size of your pie, fold it in fours.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and just cut
the center.
like a snowflake.
Unfold it. Yeah, just like a snowflake.
Yeah, I love this. If you're just joining us, we're talking to Brooke Hebert, who is director of our kitchen operations, a pastry chef, and she's giving us all kinds of good tips on how to make our holidays more delicious this year. So this is pretty simple. I didn't realize that you liked your tortilla with a pie crust on top, so I apologize for the texture. But
that's great.
You know, I considered putting in a recipe for the meat filling itself, but I didn't know that we had time to do that. But we had a friend bring one over this year that was made with venison.
Oh, wow.
And I had never had that. It was fantastic. So there's a little tip.
I mean, you could certainly use your olive oil or your infused butter to make a gravy. You know,
right.
Just look up a recipe. I like all recipes because most of the people put in a review about the recipe. And again, if you're starting with your infused oil and you know what the effect of it is for a certain amount, use that to gauge how much you're going to use of your medicated butter or oil, and then create your recipe around it.
Right. Wow. I also, we can't reiterate enough that if you do use an infused pie crust, you want to be very, very clear about which pie has that crust.
Yes.
Because you may not taste the butter in a recipe like this. The cannabis might not even register
completely
in the taste buds.
Yeah.
So and I guess oh my goodness, we are very again we're broadcasting from Bailey's Auto Repair, which is next door to the dispensary here in Gardner. So we're hearing some exciting background noises that we don't. Okay, sounds like they got it. All right, so we were talking about making sure that our infused pies are not mixed up with the uninfused pies, that we keep them away from kids and non-patients. You could probably get a little leaf cookie cutter, right? And maybe cut something into the crust, maybe a stencil type thing.
You just want to make sure it's labeled and absolutely certain no one who shouldn't have it should steer clear of it.
Yes. All right, this is my favorite. This is my favorite holiday candy. And when I realized that it could be infused, I was ecstatic. And it is so easy to make, and people are so grateful, whether it's infused or not. I have found that people are super grateful when you come to them with a little bag of chocolate that you made.
Yes.
And it's really super simple to make peppermint bark. And again, I was very excited to discover this recipe. So we want to start with dark chocolate, and recommending the 70 to 85% cacao solid. Why?
Well, the fat content in a chocolate is what makes it a higher quality.
Okay.
And the cocoa, well, I shouldn't say higher quality, but it has a different mouthfeel. The higher the butter.
Okay.
So you want a higher cocoa because you're adding butter to the rest.
The dark chocolate is important.
So you want so this would be the kind of chocolate that you would not just buy and then eat a bar of, right?
I would, because I love dark chocolate.
Okay.
However, the average person doesn't usually, I mean, I shouldn't say that. I don't know what people typically like, but I think generally Americans like a milk chocolate. I think that's true. So I would say that the 70 to 85% is necessary so that it still will set up with the butter added to it.
Okay.
Because it's going to give it a little bit more softer texture.
Right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So that would also explain why I could not find an infused recipe for white chocolate peppermint bark.
White chocolate is actually just cocoa butter.
Okay, so there's no solids.
No.
Would there be a way to infuse a white milk chocolate?
You could make truffles.
Okay.
Truffles are made with the fat. Made with the ganache, which is equal parts chocolate and cream.
Okay. And
so
that
you
would
could make a white chocolate, but white chocolate's very costly. Make sure you start with a high quality chocolate.
Microwave bowl.
Make sure if you're going to use your microwave, you only 15 seconds at a time stirring, 15 seconds at a time stirring. You really, even with this recipe, chocolate is very fussy. Do not microwave it for 30 seconds and leave it because it can create burn spots.
Okay.
The microwave creates a lot of friction, you know, and it will cook it.
I'm glad to hear that because this again recipe is very simple and it does just call for a microwave and a bowl. So again, we can alter the potency of this recipe by upping the amount of canna butter and you know peppermint sticks. I said 6, but you know to taste.
Yeah.
and visually, you know, you want it to be visually appealing. So basically, we're gonna see. I even said 30-second intervals. I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
15
No,
seconds.
30's okay as long
With
as
dark.
Yeah,
Okay.
but not with milk.
Not with milk.
Use, or even white. You're not gonna.
It's not gonna.
No.
Okay. All right.
And this stuff will stay firm. You could use whiter milk as well. It will stay firm in the freezer.
Oh, okay.
You keep it cold.
Okay, got it. So they're saying, you know, 30-second intervals until it's almost fully melted. When there's still a little bit of chunkiness to it, so you see that picture. Stir, you know, take it out and stir it up until it all melts.
And it will continue to melt, even though you still see lumps in it. Don't feel like you have to put it back in the microwave. Chocolate melts at 90 degrees.
Ah, okay.
So it's going, as long as the rest of it's warm, if you just give it a little bit of time, it will melt and smooth out.
Got it.
And generally speaking, chocolate will bloom if you make it too hot and then cool it. Have you ever seen white streaks on homemade candy?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's called bloom.
Okay.
And that's when the crystals in the chocolate don't come back together in a uniform pattern. So that causes it to create these crystalline streaks in it. It's not bad. There's nothing wrong with it, but you know, if you've ever left a chocolate bar in your car and then unwrapped it, you see it looks weird. It's not spoiled. It's not mold. It's just it has bloomed.
Interesting. Yeah. Very interesting. Wow. Well, again, I love this for its simplicity because once it's all melted, basically you get to do art with chocolate, right? You pour it out on your big pan with your wax paper and spatula it around to a thickness that makes you happy. Yeah. And then we get to put the peppermint sticks in a bag and bang on them. And
actually, you know, I throw mine in the Cuisinart.
Oh, do you?
Chop it right up.
In your food processor.
And you can get soft peppermints, too, like buttermints and stuff.
Okay. Here we go again. Bailey's Auto, very, very popular location here in Gardner. You should check with them for all of your automotive needs, as folks are obviously doing today. Back to the chocolate. So we just sprinkle those peppermint chunks on the top and gently press them in. That sounds like fun because then I get to lick the chocolate off my fingers, right?
Right.
And there's nothing after that. You just let it set.
Wonderful. And you could use this to make anything. You put some toasted salted almonds or cashews or cranberries or walnuts and mix it in with your chocolate and then just pour it. Give the pan a nice tap to level the chocolate and let it set up.
Ooh, I'm thinking pistachio and white chocolate chips on top. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So this is a very basic recipe, but versatile. Yeah. Indeed. And then to break it into pieces, all we've ever done at home is just pick up the wax paper and drop it on the counter from a.
So here's a little trick from my history as a chocolatier. I used to be a chocolatier at one point in my pastry career. Right as the chocolate is beginning to set up, it's going to get to this point where it's slightly shiny.
Okay.
And still a little bit soft, like finger soft. You can push on it and make a little fingerprint, but it's not like really wet. Take a knife and score it.
Oh.
Then you can break it into even exact pieces.
Wow. And then let it finish hardening. And, oh my goodness. That's I would never have thought of it.
Learn a lot of tricks.
I'll bet.
You get into something.
And then that, to make that into a gift, I mean, all you need really is some like cellophane paper and a ribbon. And, again, with a label on it saying this is infused chocolate bark.
It's medicine at this point.
Exactly. And that's the recipes that I wanted to go over with you, and thank you again for being here. I want us to review these things, though, and maybe you can talk a little bit about the importance when we're cooking with cannabis of mixing thoroughly and then lower temperatures and longer cook times.
Absolutely.
Talk to us about that a little bit.
Well, for instance, we still use unsalted butter in our cookies.
Mm-hmm.
It's really critical to make sure that your butter is completely homogenized or mixed into your sugar. You want to make sure that it's completely smooth and mixed in. Otherwise, it's not completely. I mean, you could get a hunk of butter in one cookie, and who knows how much that contains for potency.
Right.
I mean, it's critical.
Right.
It's critical to be sure it's mixed thoroughly.
Gotcha. And then low temperatures and longer cooking times in general with cannabis, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, if you can cook your cookies at 325, which is what we cook at, it's better for the cookie. It doesn't degrade the cannabinoids as much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what we're referring to there is that each of the cannabinoids, THC has its own boiling off point, but each of the other, 60 plus also have their own elements, have their own boiling points as well. So higher temperatures means that you're going to be losing some of those active compounds. Sure. So, as with any infused product, you want to start low and go slow. None of these recipes are super potent. You can certainly double them up if you feel the need, but anytime you're cooking at home, you want to be sure to start with a small portion.
Absolutely, and wait at least 2 hours. Mm-hmm. Because it takes time. Each person's different. Some people have a different effect than others. Right. And some people it hits them right away, and some people it takes much longer.
Right. Yeah. And it can depend on what you've had to eat and drink, and
for sure.
So the same cookie on 2 different days might treat you a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. So 2 hours is a very safe window. But if you're not feeling the therapeutic effects by then maybe we take a little bit more. Again, not the rest of the chocolate bark or whatever. Cannot stress this enough. Clearly label any infused product, especially if you are giving it as a gift to another patient, but also within your own home. You don't want there to be any doubt in anybody's mind about what they're eating.
And keep it safely away from pets and children.
Pets and kids, exactly. Never ever feed somebody an infused product without telling them. I know that this audience knows that and would not do that, but it's not funny, and it can be quite scary for folks. And then THC infused products, as Brooke mentioned earlier, and pets especially, don't mix. No. And part of that, I know that there are people who have used topicals and even edible treatments for their pets. I believe you can buy them in some of the dispensaries out west, but they are not heavy in THC, and it seems like that's really the problem when it comes to a cat or a dog.
Certainly, they weigh a lot less than a human being. Who knows what their tolerance level is? Who knows what their liver can process versus us or another animal? And certainly, without the guidance of a veterinarian, I would never ever give it to my animal.
And how scary it would be for them because they don't understand what they're feeling. So. But these are simple, safety recommendations. Again, I know this audience knows these things, but it never hurts to go over it one more time. And I believe that is the end of our presentation. There's our contact information there. I really do feel like we should have Bailey's Auto Parts information here as well. I really appreciate their hospitality in inviting us over. Ben, we're okay. Brooke, is there anything else that you want to impart to our listeners or folks who are viewing this?
It would be great to get additional feedback from people if they had any suggestions. Certainly be nice to hear from them. Again,
so if folks are trying these recipes out, feel free to shoot us an email at info at
Maine Wellness.
Yeah, at Maine Wellness, and let us know how it went. I have to close out today by thanking, first of all, our special guest, Brooke Bear, our kitchen operations manager. It was great fun, and I've learned a lot, and I know that our listeners have too. Have to give a shout out to producer Ben, who makes it happen every time we do one of these things. There's so much that producer Ben is doing in the background that we have to give him a big shout out. And again, one more time, many thanks to Percy Bailey Auto Sales in Gardner here. They are our next door neighbors. When our internet did not work this morning, they opened their doors to us and very kindly gave us a place to broadcast from. Their phone number is 582-4250, and they are open 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. If you're in Gardner, you should stop in and say hi to them. They have a great collection of antique auto memorabilia. Yeah, cars, and we're looking at a Sinclair gasoline pump here, so it's been great to be here. Yeah, it really is. So, again, I'm Becky DeCoyster with Wellness Connection of Maine, and this has been Cooking for the Holidays with Cannabis and Brooke Bear. Thank you so much, folks.
Thank you.
Have a good holiday.